How many times have you said to yourself, I'm going to succeed, and yet you keep coming up short? You probably noticed that high achievers with heart do things differently, but you just can't put your finger on it. You're curious about why high achievers accomplish more and have more satisfying relationships. It's because success is the result of your mindset and the consistent actions you take. This show is designed with your success in mind. By revealing these powerful patterns of our dynamic individuals and guest experts, you can model what they do and apply to your future success now. Let's roll up our sleeves and get started. My name is Brigitte Höfele, and this is the Success Patterns Show. And that is right. Welcome, everyone. Here is the golden nugget. Success patterns are more valuable than ideas. Let me explain. Ideas, while powerful, require, trial and error and a lot of time to put the thing into action. Just think about manufacturing. First, you have an idea, then you have a proof of concept, then working with a prototype, then small production batches, and finally, you have a full-scale production. That takes months, maybe even years. You may have met some people who are collectors of ideas. May they be great, but they do little else. Forget everything what you heard about ideas. You are not looking for ideas. You're looking for success patterns. Success patterns are different. Success patterns are better. Why? Well, success patterns are proven, have a logical sequence of steps to follow, have an action imperative, and deliver consistent results. In our content-rich program, the Success Pattern Show, you'll learn valuable success patterns. And we have a special guest today. Today is all about scaling. Today is about talking to one business leader who has been there, done that, and didn't really struggle. I love his story. You'll hear it in a minute. But he started scaling. And he started implementing what he has learned at a very young age on. He's helped nearly 20,000 new businesses and nonprofits and led his multi-million-dollar business through an exceptional and extended growth phase. He shared with me that he tripled his profit within 1 year. Well, actually, it was 13 months. He founded Scale Architects to help businesses across the country identify the right growth strategies and find the right guides to get them to the fast track to predictable success and stay there as long as possible. And he started doing that at a very young age. And I couldn't be more excited to have him here on the Success Pattern Show today, Scott Ritzheimer.
Brigitte.
Hey, Scott,
it's fun to have a couple of Atlantans on the show here.
Atlanta in the house. And we talked about this earlier. We never know what weather we're going to get.
This is true. Riding the roller coaster of January and February.
That's right. Riding the roller. I'm just literally hanging in here because I see the signs of spring when I look out my window. But we're not here to talk about fauna and flora. We're here to talk about predictable success model. Now, you kind of slipped into the business world, as you shared with me, and you have an interesting position where you started out, where you were not just familiar with the nonprofit world, but also with the for-profit world. And how has that led to predictable success models?
Yeah, it's funny you mention it. So I like to kind of consider myself an accidental entrepreneur, one of those people that didn't really mean to get into the world of entrepreneurial work. I was just looking for a job, found a part-time job in a small business, and absolutely fell in love with business. Through a series of very unfortunate events, I watched the sale of that business with owner financing fall to pieces. And over about 18 months, $1.5 million business shrunk to 3 part-time employees working from home with basically zero sales. And it was, fortunate for me, it was one of the least painful learning experiences that you can get. Now, it was painful, right? And it's just watching all of it, knowing that it could be better, my heart broke so many times throughout that process, but it forever shaped the way that I look at business after that. Just watching, how it fell apart, and seeing how it was woefully dependent on one person as opposed to building a system that could repeat itself. It was, it's kind of in and out, and just making it up as we go. And what we had no real grid for, and what I love about even the name of the show, is this idea of patterns that happen, right? We had ideas, in your intro. We had all kinds of ideas on what would work, but we were just making it up as we go. We had no idea whether or not those ideas would actually work. So all of that happens around when I'm 20, 21 years old, which is very, very early, and it was just a phenomenal learning experience. As the company is on the verge of bankruptcy, the buyers call the owner and say, "Hey, we're going to declare bankruptcy on this. If you want the company back, you can have it. You got 24 hours." So he jumps in a U-Haul, drives up to Nashville, Tennessee, to get a couple of computers and kind of a thumbs up, back from them to say, "Hey, you can go ahead and run with it." And on the road, he calls me. I was one of the three people left at the time, and said, "Hey, will you come back and help me relaunch this thing? There's nothing left of it, but I think we can make a go of it." This is September 2008. I'll just let that sink in for a second. So the first 6 months of this
In 2008, let's just think really back real quick. 2008 was not the best time
No.
to relaunch something that was already kind of dead.
Yes, it was dead on arrival, and then the stock market dropped. So in the first 6 months of us being there, stocks dropped about 40% on the whole. And I mean, it was a fight. It's funny to think of my story as not having one of struggle, because some of the stuff that's out there is like the success of our story. But I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I was basically in the fetal position over, is this thing going to make it, right? Are we going to ever get paid? What happened once we took the company over, we found out there were about 250 clients as a full service organization that had paid and not received their services. And so we had to facilitate, and that was about 6 months of work with zero income from it. We had several local vendors. We owed them over $100,000 and didn't realize it. Now the other company owed them, but it was the company in their mind, and we wanted to make it right. And they had destroyed the website, and it makes them sound like really bad people. They were not bad people at all. They're wonderful people who stay in touch with them today, but they just systematically and unintentionally destroyed the company. And so for lots of different reasons. Fast forward, we just fight and scrap and hustle and do whatever we can to get this thing off the ground. We make a website in a couple of days. You know what I mean? We laughed because we created our own CRM because we couldn't find one in 2 weeks. We coded our own CRM. Just funny. Like, we had no business doing any of the things that we were doing, but somehow it worked. The phone starts ringing, sales start coming in. And the two of us together start building a team. We rehired a couple of people. We found some new people, and it was just this wonderful period of like, hey, this is now working, right? So this is actually a lot of fun. This whole business thing's pretty cool. And that lasted for several years. We're doing somewhere between 35 and 75% growth a year at this stage. So up 5, 6, 7 million, and then things started to get hard again. It was never easy, but now there's like another level of hard. Like, we used to hire a sales rep, train them well, and then we'd grow. We used to, we kind of had the formula figured out. We knew what to do. And now we're hiring salespeople. We're running more events. We're doing all the things that were helping us grow, and they're not working. In fact, our expenses are like skyrocketing, but our income is just it's working, but it wasn't growing at anywhere near the rate of our expenses. So we start looking around like, okay, well, who can we find? Someone else has dealt with this, right? And we use, we read a bunch of books. We do a lot of, what the big names say. And it was all helpful, and it helped clear some stuff for us, but it never changed the fundamental direction that we were heading. And that was so frustrating. And I found this now working on the other side of it as a coach, as a consultant, that so many people have had this experience of just kind of being let down by great advice,
Mm.
and and you're left kind of holding the bag, wondering like, did it not work because I didn't implement it right? Did it, it feels like I'm implementing it right, but it's not doing, what's going on here? And so we're just, we're fighting and fighting and fighting externally. Well, you fight that long and now you start fighting internally. So like me and my partner are just, we're butting heads. When you're winning, everyone's high fives, but when like
Yeah,
it's
when the
not
going gets
working the
tough.
way that it's supposed to, the high fives disappear pretty quickly. And so again, just a tremendous man, someone I deeply respect and look up to. But we felt like for a while there we couldn't see eye to eye on anything, and just could not figure out, why is this so difficult? Like it's been working so well for so long. Why is it such a big problem? And it was at that point that I was actually listening to a podcast. That's why I love doing these podcasts, because it changed my life. But I'm listening to a podcast and I hear this gentleman come on. His name's Les McEwen. He's from Ireland. So it takes a minute to kind of understand anything that comes out of his mouth. But once you kind of get the cadence of it, you get it. But no, I can say that because he's now a dear friend. But so he's on this podcast and he starts talking about this idea that not an idea, it's actually a set of patterns. You perfectly describe why this is so important. But there's a pattern that every single organization goes through, for profit, like my business, nonprofit, like the thousands that we served, any group of two or more. I actually did a podcast where I did this for a marriage. It's these 7 stages that we all go through. And as he's going through these early stages, early struggle, right? Can we get this thing off the ground? Fun, we got it off the ground and we can do no wrong. We're stealing victory from the jaws of defeat. We're beating the big guys. It's awesome. To this stage called whitewater. And I was literally sitting there in my car. I had to pull over and I was just like, how does he know this? Does he have a camera in my office? Has he been reading our emails? Like, what is going on here? How could he possibly know this much about our organization, having never spoken to us? And it's at that moment that I realized the challenges that we were facing as an organization were just the challenges that are natural to any growing organization.
Mhm.
Every single growing organization hits this stage called whitewater. And the way that I would describe it, if I can pause the story for a second and go back to when I was around 8, 9 years old. I was at a mall. You probably remember those things, right? I was at a mall and I got separated from my mom, and I think she was like, "Meet me at J.C. Penney's" or something like that. And so I'm trying to find my way to J.C. Penney. I can't find my way around, and I'm kind of getting worked up. I'm a little kid, feel like I'm lost. And I came across, and you'll remember these, the at the mall, kind of near some of the entrances, not all of them, but most of them, there's those big kind of triangle pylons. And then on one side, it's got a map. And on that map, there's a little sticker that says, "You are
You are
here."
here.
And the sense of relief that I got as an 8-year-old kid was the same thing that I felt as a 26, 27-year-old business owner when I heard about this whitewater stage, because it was the very first time that I ever felt like our business was on a map.
Mm.
Since we started, we felt like we were pioneers. We're walking off the face of the map. We're making a map as we go. And what we realized, especially what I realized for the very first time, is that there actually is a map, that there are these stages that we all go through. And this is just a normal part of the process. Even more than that, it is the result and proof that you did the right things in fun, because you grew so much that you outgrew how you can lead in fun. And so there was a leadership change and a mindset shift that needed to happen. And I never would have understood that. I never would have had the confidence to execute on it if I didn't have a pattern to point to. Right? If this was just an idea that he had, hey, I wonder if there's this point where organizations just bump into challenges. That's what it felt like for us, right?
Mhm.
And when he came on and said, no, there's actually a pattern, right? He started 42 companies by the time he was 35. He worked with an incubator that launched thousands across 6 continents. Like he just had this opportunity to see businesses at such a high level that he could see the patterns repeating again and again. And when he's laid it out and articulated it in such a clear and simple way and said, hey, the next stage is not the end, right? Like, because that's how it felt. It's like,
Mm.
this is as good as it gets, right? The next stage is not the end. And in fact, it's this stage that we call predictable success. It is the peak stage for you as an organization, for you as a leader. But to get there, there's a lot of changes that need to happen, and the right changes in the right order. And so that you mentioned at the beginning of the show, we tripled our bottom line in a year. Well, we did the poor man's implementation. You ever read the book and do it yourself, that kind of a thing, right? We read the book, and actually before that, I have to admit what I did, which is what most of us do when we read a book, is I promptly took it and put it on a shelf. And, I was like, that's interesting. But I didn't change anything. And it wasn't for, I'm embarrassed to admit this. It was about 2 years later before I really went back and said, hey, hold on, I'm done being in this whitewater state that he talked about. I've got to find a way out. So went to the book, and the back of the book is just these simple steps, and you do the steps, you do them in the right order. And the change inside the organization was just phenomenal. And yeah, forever since. So to kind of put a nice bookend on the story, and show you a little bit of what a glutton for punishment I am. I lead our organization through this really challenging whitewater stage. I get us through to predictable success. We're back to feeling like the sky's the limit, and I realize I'm actually kind of bored. Like, I don't know that I'm really cut out for this whole predictable success thing. Like, and I actually realized at that point that I was made for whitewater. I was like, the way that I'm designed, my way of seeing problems, of understanding challenges, of bringing visionaries and processors and these different types of leadership together at the same table. That's where I actually found out, no, I'm not the one to take this company to the next level, right? That's a hard thing to realize, but it's because I know there's something better for me. I know there's a better fit for me. And ultimately what ended up happening was sold my stake in the company, transitioned a new generation of leaders in. They went on to double the company in the next couple of years, just did a fantastic job, just building on the framework and foundation that we had. And it was just excellent all around. And so now, what I do, again, kind of round out the story, I wanted to go out and help people avoid the pain and suffering that I did, and do it through a set of patterns that we have codified in this model that made such a huge impact in my life.
And there's I have so many questions. Oh my God, where do I begin? So you talked about systematically, or realizing that you have a system, but you don't know what the system is. And if you don't know what the system is, how are you supposed to multiply it?
Yes.
You found a system, you found a process, you found a pattern that you can teach to others. And that's, I guess, where scale architects come in. Is that correct?
Yeah. We had a system. It was figure it out. That was our system. It was hire great people and let them figure it out. And there's an element of that that's true, right? But when you reach a certain size and you say just figure it out, well, there's 15 ways to figure it out. And so you get 15 people figuring out 15 different ways, and it's chaos, right? Wonderful.
It's chaos, and
people.
it takes time,
yes,
and resources,
and it's
and energy.
exhausting. Yes,
Exhausting.
and you're running in 15 different directions, and you fall down 15 times all at once. And so yes, it was, and yeah, that's what we do now. So I've got this beautiful group of people who we've trained the model, we've taught them the different techniques and ideas, but more than anything, we've just taught them how these patterns show up, so that we can walk in. And it's funny, I mean, that same experience I had of like, where's the camera in here? I just see it happen time and time again. And again, going back to this idea of success patterns, which is just so brilliant, is that we can be that accurate because it's the same pattern repeating again and again and again.
And thinking back to when you were 20, why you? There's something there. And I don't know if you probably have asked yourself many times, why me? What did you have that then, the former business owner came back to you and asked you to come back on? What did Scott always, already as the little 8-year-old, or even before that age, what did you have? There's something that you have.
I don't know that I can answer that question in any type of a satisfactory way. What I can tell you, though, is that the most trouble I get into and the most value I bring both come from the same thing. And I think it's probably got to do with the answer to your question, but that is asking questions.
Mm.
And that's just something. So where it started, our relationship, myself with the original founder, was we'd go on runs together. There was a park, it was about 3 miles, and I was just getting into running at the time. He had been running for a while, and he would take me along with him, and I would just ask questions and ask questions and ask
Mhm.
questions. And I think that's the thing, that really sparked something for him. I think that's been the resource that led me to finally finding the answers that I was looking for. And like I said, it's gotten me in a lot of trouble. We don't necessarily need to share those stories, but from that standpoint, I think that's it. And the other part of it is like, entrepreneurship just kind of runs in my blood. My grandpa had started a business. My father had started a business, and it just kind of, when you come out of that environment, it just sticks to you a little bit. And so I think that had to do with it as well.
So there's the curiosity piece that continues to stick around and guide you along with the success patterns and the predictable success patterns. A- and also there's a piece of certainty, like when you shared the story of, there's the little flag, you are here, there's a piece of certainty. And when you are working with entrepreneurs, when you're working with business people, they often, I'm not going to say all of them, but a lot of them are visionaries, and they're cool with being, uncertain, with, oh, let's just build the plane on the way down. Who cares, right? Chaos. But there's something within that certainty. What is it?
Yeah, so I would actually use a different word for it. I would use the word clarity, and I think that's a
Mm,
little easier for visionaries to embrace, even though it doesn't always come naturally to them inside of their organization. So, and what I mean by clarity was, when you know where you are on the map, it doesn't give you any certainty about where you're trying to get to, right? All
mhm,
you know is where you are. But if you try and get wherever you're going without ever having the clarity about where you are right now, I mean, good luck. It's throwing darts, into the dark. And so for me, I think it's that clarity piece. And I can't give anybody certainty, right? I have no idea what the future holds. I started my second company, just to put this to bed. I started my second company, and the stock market results weren't any better than the first time around. I started it in the beginning of 2020, and we know how that turned out. So
mm,
I can't say that I've achieved anything by way of certainty, but what I have achieved through these patterns is a sense of clarity. And I found that for visionary leaders and their teams who are wired very differently from each other, it's clarity that bridges that gap, right? Visionaries have no need for certainty. In fact, they have a just a at sometimes reckless belief in the certainty of their ideas. Uh, but others have like processors, right? Which I actually have both of those tendencies in me, which is kind of weird. I have that visionary, like, let's go for this, we'll figure it out, and this processor, like, let's figure everything out before we move. I
mhm.
wrestle with both of those every single day. Uh, but so again, going back to like, yeah. Anyway, but again, what ties those two together, because you'll never have, both the certainty of the processor type leader and the flexibility of a visionary type leader. But what you can have to bridge the gap is clarity.
Mhm. I love that. I love how you define that, and I can so relate to you, because I have these two parts within me that are driving Brigida, if you will, on a regular basis. Before we come to an end today, I want to quickly talk about you. You have gotten really good at not just building businesses through a time of adversity, but scaling them and helping others to scale. What can you tell people? We still have folks coming out of the pandemic, or the mindset of the pandemic, and my business is still hurting. What what would you tell them?
Yeah, I think you got to find where you are on the map. You got to have your "you are here" moment. And that's the thing that's been so helpful. It was so helpful for me as a business owner. It's been so helpful for my clients is when you recognize what stage your business is, not where are you, but when are you? It helps you to say, hey, these are all things that would be wonderful to solve, but they're not actually going to move us forward. What are the 2, 3 things that if we solve them now will give us the most success for our stage?
Mhm.
And so when it comes to kind of growing and scaling, I mean, it's something I can teach for days, but to boil it down, I would say the very first thing is find out what stage you're in, right? We've got the book. It's free on our website if you want it. We've got a course on how to scale. We've got so many free resources, but the very, very first thing I would do is just recognize that there's a pattern, right? And it's these 7 stages, and every single organization goes through them. And what happens when you go out and try and find like that one thing that's going to work every single time, that one thing may work every single time if you're in the right stage, right? Pick your book. It's written for an audience in a certain stage. And if you're not in that stage, you can do it until you're blue in the face, but it's not going to create the results that you're expecting. But if you can identify what stage you're in, what things will help you in that stage, that's where your ability to grow and then ultimately scale will come from.
That is beautifully stated. And that leads me to something that you brought that will help the listeners to actually identify and take you to that next, whatever that next level is. And there's no judgment here. There's only what is, where are you starting and where can you go? What is the clarity? What are the possibilities? So you came bearing gifts. What is the gift? Share it with us.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, you're like, oh my goodness, this whitewater stage that he's talking about, right? We've got a business. It's working well. You've had some success, but you found yourself in a hole you can't sell yourself out of, right? You feel like your problems are scaling faster than your profits. That's not the way to scale a business. And so what we've done, we've taken the same curriculum that I take my clients through when I do private coaching and consulting. We've taken that, we've boiled it down to 6 weeks of just 5 minutes a day. And it walks you through not only what you need to do to scale, but what order you need to do those things to scale. And you'll find it's actually very counterintuitive. It's not the things you think, and it's definitely not the things in the order that you think they need to be done. But not unlike a set of dominoes, what happens when you do the right things in the right order, it's like tapping the first domino and then watching them all go. You'll just see just this tremendous sense of momentum. So anyway, there's a free 6-week course. You can get it on our website, scalearchitects.com, all one word, scalearchitects.com/6-weeks.
So scalearchitects.com/6, SIX dash WEEKS. And I would encourage each and every one of you, go there now, scalearchitects.com/6-weeks. Start now, start today. There's no waiting. It sounds like, Scott, this is for anyone. This is for any business, for anyone that is in business. Definitely go there now. I have a comment here from Brian who says he absolutely loves this and loves this conversation.
Awesome.
Thank you, Brian, for tuning in and sharing your thoughts with us. How do people get in touch with you, Scott?
Yeah. So on the website, there's just an enormous amount of resource there. There's actually a quiz to find out what stage you're in. So if you're wondering what stage, you don't have to wonder anymore. You can just take the assessment. But so that's scalearchitects.com. And just help you. There's, I think there's somewhere around 600 videos there. Like there's just an enormous amount of free content waiting
Ooh,
for you.
yeah.
So any stage, any business, nonprofits as well, same stages, same challenges, different language, but same deal. So I'd do that. If you want to reach out to me directly, LinkedIn's a great place to do it. You can find my LinkedIn profile there and just shoot me a quick message. I'd love to chat with you and see what we can do to help you scale.
Yeah, I love it. So linkedin.com/IN/Scott Ritzheimer, SCOTTRITZHEIMER, Ritzheimer, that just like you say it. Connect with Scott. Make sure that you are going. Let me find this banner one more time. The scalearchitects.com/6-weeks. Scott, thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing your incredible systematical approach. And this was a beautiful conversation. Little did I know when I was on your show what I would get for our listeners and our followers. Truly a win-win-win. Any last words you want to share with us?
Yeah, you should check. If you thought this was great, you should check out Brigitte's show on the secrets of the high demand coach. That's where we met and just did a fantastic job there. So it's just been an absolute pleasure getting to know you, and it's just an honor to be here with your audience. I appreciate each and every one of you.
Yeah, and I hope that I can see you in person, actually, since we both live in Atlanta.
That's right.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott, for being here. Guys, tune in again next week, same time, same place for the Success Pattern Show on Tuesday at 4:30 Eastern Time. Thank you for tuning in, and you will notice opportunities to apply success patterns daily while eagerly anticipating next week's content-rich success patterns.